Okay, so this question is, as a person of color, are there any advantages to having a person of color as my executive coach? This is a really great question because so often those who are either on track for executive roles or who have executive roles, they have access to coaching. And the coaching, though, often doesn't recognize nuance, the things that actually help to make and shape a person if that person does not come from the dominant culture. So this can be especially true for people of color. Often, people of color receive advice that does little more than encourage them to assimilate. And this can lead to a kind of erasure of experience, of lived experience. That means one has to kind of flatten themselves to meet a kind of one note culture that can often exist and dominate executive teams. So certainly you have to respect the culture that you are working in and the constraints and sometimes the gifts of that culture. But cultures do also create a lens that means that progress, for example, is seen and understood only through that lens. And so there is some need to kind of conform because that can be the most effective path. But there are also gifts that come from diverse experience. And so the rigidity of a culture can often leave little room for the exploration of what those gifts might be. Though it's not done out of malice, the impact is a kind of sameness that weakens the prospect of innovation and connection that can happen when the gifts of diversity are given not enough room to thrive. So there are ways that people of color can respond to those moments and help to shape the culture using their diverse experience. And obviously, as we mentioned, is some delicacy here because you're working in existing cultures and because some of these perspectives are entrenched and there's often little understanding or imagination to leverage what people of color or people of diverse backgrounds really can bring to organizations. And so the invitation then is to consider that now might be a time for you, if you have access to executive coaching, to reach out, work with an executive coach who you share in some way a similar background. So if you're a person of color, to work with a person of color. If you're a person who's from the LGBT community, to work with a person who also shares that same background. It's something certainly that's worth trying, and you might have a sense of resonance that you may not be experiencing in your current situation. Thanks for the question.